Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Have you ever actually wondered what happens to the spaces between languages? You know, when hard lines are drawn on maps and standard languages are rigidly taught in schools, the rich, messy, totally organic linguistic bridges between regions, well, they often just get paved over. So today, we are looking at an absolutely fascinating project that attempts to rebuild one of those lost bridges.
We'll be mapping out the history of the broken dialect continuum, introducing Gemmeëntesch, exploring the consonant shift, borrowing the best grammar, calking to build new words, and finally looking at language nests and revitalization.
Starting with Section 1, the broken dialect continuum, fracturing a linguistic landscape.
To put this into perspective, centuries ago, you could literally walk all the way from Vienna to Amsterdam, and at no point along that journey would the local dialect be completely unintelligible from the village you just left. It's like a giant puzzle where every piece perfectly matches its neighbor. Linguists call this a dialect continuum. But as modern nations grew, they needed standard languages, standard German, standard Dutch, for governance and schools. And those hard political borders eventually shattered this organic continuum. That middle ground eroded away, leaving regional varieties like Zeelandic on the coast or Pennsylvania Dutch over in North America totally isolated, marginalized, or even endangered.
Let's move to Section 2 to see how this builds towards a truly fascinating solution. Introducing Gemmeëntesch, a linguistic bridge.
So what if we could reconstruct that missing link? What if we could synthesize a what-if heritage language that sits exactly in the middle of that broken continuum? Well, enter Gemmeëntesch. Historically referred to as Niederhochdeutsch, this is a constructed language meticulously designed to balance historical authenticity with structural accessibility. It essentially acts as a transitional tongue, weaving together features from Low Franconian, Low German, and High German. It's purpose-built for modern community revitalization.
All right, Section 3, the consonant shift. Sitting on the Rhinish fan, let's look at the actual nuts and bolts of this language.
Now, what's incredibly cool about this is how it navigates the High German consonant shift. This shift is the absolute biggest differentiator in these languages. I actually want you to try this with me. Say the Dutch word machen and then the German machen out loud. You can literally feel the shift in your mouth, right? From that hard K in the back of your throat to that breathy fricative. Gemmeëntesch beautifully adopts a partial shift. It keeps the unshifted machen and appel, but then it shifts the word for two from twee to tsui, which captures the exact transitional behavior of the West Central German region.
For some quick context, an isogloss is basically a geographic boundary line on a map that marks a specific linguistic feature. By sitting structurally right between the Ujerdigen and Speyer isoglosses, Gemmeëntesch confidently uses the unshifted ik for I and appel for apple, yet perfectly locks in its unique Niederhochdeutsch character. It doesn't go all the way to Upper German, but it doesn't stay completely flat like Dutch either. It's the ultimate middle ground.
Moving to Section 4, borrowing the best grammar, an organic Frankenstein's language.
To make the language structurally accessible, its creators deliberately borrow the best, most functional parts from across the surviving continuum. Just look at how negation works. Instead of the standard single negation you'd find in Dutch, it adopts the highly expressive Afrikaans double negation system. Notice the two ni particles here. You place the first ni right in the middle of the sentence after the verb, and the second ni at the absolute end. I drink niet a koffie nie. It perfectly brackets the negative thought.
It also borrows this beautiful three-step formula from Yiddish for its diminutives. Those are words used to express smallness or affection. First, you realign the gender to neuter. Second, you shift the root vowel, which is called an umlaut mutation. And third, you pluralize it by adding elch. So a masculine boom, meaning tree, transforms into an affectionate neuter boomele, a lovely little tree. Make it plural, and it's boomelech. It is incredibly systematic, but also deeply emotional.
Add to that recipe Pennsylvania Dutch's simplified case system, which drops all those complex noun endings. Throw in efficient Yiddish prepositional contractions, turning zudem into zum. Mix in the powerful Zeelandic subject pronoun doubling for emphasis, like saying ich binne ich, which translates to I am indeed I, and top it all off with the Mennonite present perfect aspect. You end up with a rich, perfectly organic grammatical recipe that feels incredibly lived in.
Section 5, calking. Building new words and avoiding the English machinery gap.
Now, a massive challenge is that a language has to actually function in the modern scientific world. Immigrant dialects that left Europe before major medical and technological advancements suffered a huge machinery gap, where they'd often just borrow English words wholesale. To prevent this, Gemmeëntesch uses something called structural calking. This is where you translate complex scientific concepts morpheme by morpheme into native roots. Let's take human anatomy and physiology as a prime example. Instead of using the English term ophthalmologist, the language uses Augengradsdoktor. The nervous system becomes the Scheunewichtel. The brain is the Harsinghirn, and the digestive system is the Verdurstel. It is fully capable of expressing advanced medical concepts while preserving its complete phonetic integrity.
Which brings us to Section 6, Nests and Language Revitalization, bringing grammar back to the community.
Of course, grammar rules and medical vocabulary only matter if a language is actually spoken. Borrowing from highly successful Maori and Hawaiian indigenous revitalization models, the project emphasizes early childhood language nests. They use a serve and return method, where an adult responds to a toddler's babbling with targeted heritage language gestures. And they don't shy away from complex subjects. They teach menschliche Anatomia on physiology, human anatomy and physiology, entirely in the heritage tongue. They use simple, powerful sentences like "Mein Hart schlägt schnell wenn ich Herdlauf," meaning "my heart beats fast when I run," or "Spier helpen den Mensch te bewegen," meaning muscles help the human move. Teaching kids to identify their Kopf or head builds real-world native-level fluency from day one.
This quote really hits the nail on the head. The ultimate goal is revernacularization. Because at the end of the day, it's not about passing a written test, it's about domain reclamation. It's about consciously carving out spaces, whether that's at the dinner table, in the local clinic, or on social media, where the community can live, breathe, and interact exclusively in their heritage tongue without defaulting to a dominant standard language.
Gemmeëntesch shows us that languages aren't just historical artifacts preserved in dusty textbooks. They are living, engineered bridges to our past, and with the right community effort, to our future as well. So I want you to consider the linguistic history of your own ancestors. If you were going to build a language to reconnect with that past, what rules, what sounds, what feelings would you borrow? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope it sparked your curiosity as much as it did mine. Catch you next time.